From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
The push to finish a farm bill.
I'm Michelle Rook. How will the House and Senate farm bills get conferenced together? We'll find out here from Farm Fest.
In agribusiness, new crop and old crop corn.
As far as the old crop, we're just trying to get it cleaned up. We're really not doing any strategies there.
Michigan dairy farmers prepare for a new processing plant and putting together pieces of prehistoric history.
AgDay, presented by the Chevy Silverado. High-strength steel for high-strength dependability.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. The U.S. Senate returns this Wednesday from a shortened August recess. On the docket, finishing a new farm bill by getting it out of conference committee and to the president's desk. Now, the committee includes 9 members from the Senate and 47 members from the House. Michelle Rook talked to Ag Committee members as well as farm group leaders about how the two versions of the farm bill will be melted into one.
The differences between the House and Senate Farm Bill versions include payment limits, CRP payments, and acreage caps, and of course the big one is SNAP reform. And House Ag Ranking Member Colin Peterson says that fight will make or break the conference process.
The biggest stumbling block, if we don't get a bill, is because of food stamps. The Senate's not going to do what the House wants. And I told Conaway that 2 months ago.
However, he says the principals have agreed to compromise.
The 4 of us have all, made a commitment that we're going to try to figure out how to resolve our differences and get this done.
Senate Ag Committee member Amy Klobuchar says the answer is the Senate Farm Bill, where they saved $1 billion in the nutrition area.
One, by cutting back on some bonuses that were given to vendors, that was $500 million, and then another $500 million that was due to double benefits.
Representative Tim Walz was named to the conference committee but says it was a highly political process.
I don't know if we have a whole lot of geographic balance. I don't think we have a whole lot of commodity balance in some of this, and that's not the way it's supposed to be done.
However, Peterson says it really doesn't matter in the long run.
The conferees that are on the bill outside of the committee have almost nothing to say about it. So this is all window dressing.
Farm group leaders say lawmakers are motivated to reach an agreement with it being an election year.
The fact that the Majority Leader McConnell in the Senate is on the conference, he put himself on the conference committee. He's got a big interest in getting this farm bill done.
There's also a sense of urgency with the current economic crisis in agriculture.
I mean, with the uncertainty with all the tariffs and everything else that's going on, we need the certainty that we have a farm bill. And we know what it's going to be, so when we go to the bank, at least they know they're going to have crop insurance in place. Everything's in place.
And both Peterson and Walz are optimistic about passage.
So I just think what we're going to end up doing is that I think leadership in the House, I think Speaker Ryan's going to allow that thing to come back with the Senate compromise, and I think we'll get it passed in a really good bipartisan number.
And the hope is the president will sign the bill even if there aren't sufficient reforms. Reporting from Farm Fest in Redwood County, Minnesota, I'm Michelle Rook.
Thanks, Michelle. The conference committee is hoping to get the bill to the president's desk before the current farm bill expires on September 30th. Also in Washington, work continues this week between the U.S. and Mexico on NAFTA. The president turning to Twitter to tout NAFTA progress on Friday, tweeting, "The deal with Mexico is coming along nicely. Auto workers and farmers must be taken care of or there will be no deal." Adding that Canada will have to wait to re-enter the trilateral talks. The president following with threats of auto tariffs on Canada if the NAFTA 2.0 deal isn't finished. The president's trade work playing into his approval ratings in farm country. In an exclusive Farm Country poll, 2,300 farmers sharing their thoughts about President Trump. The survey asking the question, how do you feel about President Trump? Responses show 52% of farmers remain favorable toward the president, 43% are unfavorable, 5% voting neither. But compare that to the president's tally in farm country during the 2016 election, when he enjoyed 70 to 80% of farmer support. And when asked if they would vote to re-elect President Trump, 54% say yes, 46% of the poll's respondents say no. Younger farmers, however, are more positive. Roughly 2 2/3 favor re-electing President Trump, while farmers over the age of 65, nearly the opposite. 57% say they would not re-elect the president. In Iowa, 54% of all Iowa farmers say they would not vote for President Trump again. Part of that stemming from trade, part of it from questions around support for the renewable fuel standard. Acting EPA Administrator Andrew Wheeler is headed to the Iowa State Fair this week. Wheeler was invited by Iowa's congressional delegation, hoping for more support on the RFS and a press for year-round sales of E15. Late last week, a jury ruling against Monsanto, ordering the company to pay $289 million to a man who says the weed killer Roundup caused his cancer. The company says it will appeal the decision. Meanwhile, Monsanto's suitor, Bayer, saw its stock prices dip about 10% during trade Monday. Also in California, USDA Secretary Sonny Perdue visiting firefighters in the Golden State. That state's been battling a historic blaze near Redding. The Ag Secretary and Department of the Interior Secretary Ryan Zinke meeting with firefighters and local leaders. Perdue says more than 7,000 Forest Service personnel are currently engaged in fires across the U.S. USDA also rolling out its latest crop progress report on Monday. USDA says 73% of the nation's corn crop is in the dough stage. That's 17 points ahead of the 5-year average. 70% of the crop rated good to excellent, down a point from last week, but well ahead of last year's 62%. 84% of soybeans are now setting pods. That's 12 points ahead. 66% of the crop in good to excellent condition, down a point from last week as well, but still ahead again of last year's 59% good to excellent marks. And 77% of the nation's cotton crop is now setting bolls, right on pace with the 5-year average. 13% of bolls are opening now. Now, as far as conditions go, only 40% of cotton acres are good to excellent, more than 20 points off last year at this time. Let's keep our eyes on crop progress. We have meteorologist Mike Hoffman in today's crop comments. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, Clinton. Yes, harvest is underway in the South. Chris Cooper posted this video to Twitter. He says yields on his field are amazing. The crop looked good from the ground, and now it looks even better on the yield monitor as yields hit 400 bushels to the acre. And Russell Baining, the Texas Farm Bureau president of Poth, Texas, also sharing this photo on Twitter. He has his cattle out grazing milo stalks. Baining says this was irrigated milo that they harvested the grain from, then turned the cows in. It's been very handy during this year's drought. Over the past few days, his area has seen about a ½ inch of rain, though. He says they're thankful but are hoping for more. And taking a look at the wind speed forecast, you can see a little bit breezy up and down the plains as we start the day today, and of course that increases as we head through the afternoon. Heading through the day tomorrow, we'll start off just a little bit breezy in some of the southern areas like Texas, and then it'll increase a little bit with that storm system moving through the Ohio Valley, central Mississippi Valley, and into the lower portions of the Great Lakes. We'll have your forecast coming up, but first here are some hometown temps.
Keeping track of the shifting market prices has never been so easy. Get the latest commodity prices sent directly to your cell phone with market updates. Just text Markets 8 to 31313 to get started.
Monday's markets fighting back after last week's USDA report. We'll talk new and old crop corn when we return. And later, this puzzle petrified bone is well on its way to being a museum marvel in Michigan. Gasoline prices appear to have peaked following the end of the summer driving season. OPEC and Saudi Arabia are signaling more supply is on the way. However, new U.S. sanctions on Iran may dampen any increase in global oil supplies. There's also the coming refinery switch from summer gas formulations to the winter formulation, which will reduce gasoline supplies, likely keeping a floor under those prices. Let's see how markets handle trade on Monday. For that, we turn to our friends on the floor of the CME in Chicago.
Soybeans were consolidating a little bit. The market actually did make another new low after that all-out collapse on Friday after the report, but it has rebounded somewhat and it's up a few cents. With the USDA saying the crop is it's a record crop, expected to be large, that also added to the 5% drop that we had, and that's been the biggest in 3 years that we had actually on Friday, so it's been very difficult to recover. Now corn also was slipping a little bit. That record crop is just adding to that bearish sentiment across the board. It seems that the futures continue to trade lower as like the fundamentals just point downward. The Kansas City, Chicago, and the Minneapolis wheat all double-digit lower, and that's in spite of all the uncertainty that's still around with wheat. The market still has a lot of room to move on the upside, but since that rally, we have space to move on both sides. And what does that tell us? That volatility is here to stay. We've been talking about that all summer long. The cattle was falling. It seems that the quiet cash trade is really weighing on futures a little bit, that the bids may not come until maybe Wednesday or Thursday. So there's not much happening right now. That's all from the floor at the CME Group. I'm Virginia McGathy.
Fresh crop numbers are in about yields and planted acres, but you still have to market that crop. Tyne Morgan has more from the road in today's analysis.
Here now with Kim Holsapple with Total Grain Marketing. Kim, you're in Illinois. That's your footprint. Real quick, how good is the crop this year in Illinois? Let's talk corn first.
Well, in our particular territory, it's as good as it's ever been. I mean, from a visual standpoint, it's very, very good. So we've got a big crop. I think the state of Illinois in general is going to be a big crop. Whether it's a record or not, I don't know, but it's going to be a big one.
And what's the potential with soybeans right now?
Well, they look as good as they've ever looked. I think actually soybeans have probably got a better chance of being a record than what the corn does, but they look fantastic, and we have had some moisture. I'm talking our geographical area anyways.
Right. Well, some of those producers prepare for a big crop this year in your footprint. You know, some still have old crop to move. And so what are you telling your producers right now?
Well, it's time. We're running out of time, and this crop is actually maturing very early this year. We had a lot of heat early with the heat degree days stacking up, so the crop is maturing very early this year. So we don't have a lot of time left on the old crop. We've had a 50% retracement in price. I'm saying let's use that to make the sales that we need to finish this old crop up.
How is basis holding up right now, considering that the market knows that we could be setting on a pretty big crop?
Yeah, it's holding up fairly well. The southeast feeders are still hanging in there, so we've got some really good rail bids right now. The domestic market here maybe is a little bit weaker than normal, but overall it's hanging in good for the producers. So.
Any strategies that you're suggesting producers use right now heading into harvest who need to get rid of that old crop corn?
Yeah, I mean, as far as the old crop, we're just trying to get it cleaned up. We're really not doing any strategies there. New crop, we're trying to get some fairly aggressive sales on. In that particular case, we'll be buying some calls to protect those sales.
And do you suggest that right now, considering that maybe we could have some upside potential in corn? Are you suggesting producers take advantage of prices?
To the people that are already 30-35% sold, I'm saying no, don't do it. If you got 0% sold, get up to that 30-35% level. If you want to get more aggressive than that, that's where I recommend the call options to protect those sales.
So you want 30% of the crop sold at this point for new crop?
That's right, yes. If they haven't did it, we need to get it done immediately, yes.
All right, Kim, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. We need to take a quick break here on Ag Day, and then we'll have much more.
Welcome back to Ag Day. Meteorologist Mike Hoffman. And Mike, it looks like we have a storm system right in the middle of the country. Could hit Missouri. Maybe it's too little too late, though. Hopefully there's some folks out there still hanging on.
You still need it for the long-term drought situation. But, yeah, this is a nice little slow-moving, wet system moving through the middle of the country. I suppose you could say about a month and a half ago that's a system that you really did need in that part of the country, no doubt about it. But watch how slow that it does move, and it has a fair amount of moisture with it. Also have one in New England, putting down some decent rains as well. Just some scattered showers along this cool front moving through the upper Great Lakes, northern plains. Hit and miss activity out west, as is typical for this time of the year. Heading into the morning hours tomorrow, we're still looking at decent rains. When you're ahead of a warm front, you can get some widespread, steady rains ahead of the warm front, even at night, and that's what we're looking at for tomorrow morning. Heading through the day then, that whole system will continue to moisten up through the afternoon with widespread areas of showers and even some scattered thunderstorms. Scattered stuff also in the southwest. And the system in the northeast moving away into eastern portions of Canada. Now, taking a look at precipitation estimates over the past 24 hours, you can see some decent amounts, parts of Kansas, eastern Oklahoma, spotty into Texas. Also parts of the northeast and Florida. Adding in the next 36 hours then, you can see that system just continues to move toward the northeast with lots of areas getting 1 to 2 inches of rain out of that across parts of Missouri, Illinois, Indiana as that pushes off to the east. Now we kind of hope for these areas that are showing up getting missed not to get missed with this system. It really should be a fairly widespread rain event, just not overly heavy, but at least a decent soaker. Temperatures this afternoon, you're looking at a lot of 70s and 80s, and 70s where it's raining, but 80s elsewhere across most of the Corn Belt. A little bit cooler far north, and of course it's still muggy down in the southeast and most of Texas. Heading into tonight, lots of lows in the 60s and in the northeast, mid-Atlantic, as well as the northern plains, but there's this little area of kind of muggy 70s on up into the Chicago and St. Louis areas. High temperatures tomorrow afternoon, lots of 90s through the south again, but you're talking 70s and 80s across most of the Midwest. As far as the jet stream goes, excuse me, you can kind of see the little troughs moving through things, and trough still trying to form in the eastern parts of the country. Kind of interesting, though, as we head through time, it really cuts down on the ridge out west. We'll see what that evolves to, but that's next Tuesday, showing a widespread trough across the northern tier of states. That's a look across the country. Now let's take a look at some local forecasts. First of all, Redding, California, hazy sunshine and hot. High of 98 degrees. Grand Island, Nebraska, cooler periods of rain with that storm system. High of 76. And Frankfort, Kentucky, partly sunny and rather warm. High temperature of 87.
There hasn't been too much to celebrate in the dairy industry lately, what with trade fights and low milk prices. Next, we'll find out which state is actually something to celebrate. That's our Farm Journal Milk Report. And then completing a complex puzzle, thousands of years in the making. Some Michigan dairy producers are celebrating the announcement of a new cheese processor into the state, and for good reason. The state has seen dramatic growth in milk production.
We've got an incredibly powerful, wonderful dairy industry. It's over 1,700 farms, primarily family farms. Many cases been in the family for generations.
Michigan Governor Rick Snyder touting the state's dairy industry, which has witnessed explosive growth over the past 5 years. According to USDA data, milk production in Michigan is up about 2 billion pounds to more than 11 billion pounds. That's an increase of 22.6%. Cow numbers are up by 47,000 head to 427,000 cows, an increase of more than 12%. Annual milk production per cow is up 2,200 pounds, up 9% to more than 26,000 pounds a year.
If you don't have a market right here, you had to ship it someplace else, and that was very expensive. So to be honest with you, over the last few years, we've had a challenge for our dairy farmers. It's been a tough haul.
Within the next 18 months, if all goes as planned, a new milk processing plant will open in St. John's, Michigan. It's a joint effort of Glanbia Nutritionals, Dairy Farmers of America, and select milk producers.
The size of this plant is just phenomenal. I mean, we're looking at 20% plus of the total milk production in the state of Michigan going through this facility. So it is huge that much product is not being shipped out of state now, that's being processed here in the state.
According to our partners at Farm Journal's Milk, the plant will process 8 million pounds of milk a day. The owners intend to employ 250 people when it's fully operational, which would come in the year 2020. They've also entered an agreement with Proliant Dairy Ingredients to process the whey co-products. Proliant says it intends to build a separate plant on the same site in St. John's.
We're going to hopefully lift up the livelihoods of dairy farmers here. We're going to affect people on farm. We're going to affect the rural communities. We're going to affect St. John's as a partnership and a team.
The state of Michigan offering financial incentives and tax abatements to help secure the deal.
The significance of this event, it's huge to the state of Michigan and to every dairy farmer in the state of Michigan. Yes, this plant is being built here in St. John's, but it's going to affect everybody and how their price of their milk is created.
The estimated cost of this project, $470 million. Up next, the massive puzzle in the shape of a dinosaur in the country is next.
Your next piece of equipment is on MachineryPete.com. Search equipment from dealerships across the country to find what you're looking for. Only on MachineryPete.com. In the Country, sponsored by the all-new Kubota Sidekick, a utility vehicle that lets you climb more, cover more, tow more, and enjoy more. Visit KubotaUSA.com.
When University of Michigan students return to campus this September, they'll be greeted by an impressive display of dinosaur bones, and some of them were found in a peat bog in neighboring Indiana. A pair of mastodon skeletons that stood in a University of Michigan Natural History Museum for decades are being reassembled and erected inside the school's new Biological Sciences building next door. The skeleton of the female Owasso mastodon was taken apart this spring after standing inside the Natural History Museum since 1947. She eventually will stand beside the cast of a bushing mastodon, which was discovered near Fort Wayne, Indiana.
We want something impressive to greet visitors as they come through this door. And what we have selected for that role is our mastodon couple. an adult male and an adult female. Part of the public's fascination with these animals is that we don't have them anymore, and yet obviously they were here so recently. We have such a wonderful fossil record of them in this part of the world especially.
Quite the puzzle. Both will be placed inside a 5-story atrium which opens next spring on the University of Michigan campus. That's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. It's been part of your day with us. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day.